Feed your mind. Feed your mind. Feed your mind.
Today at Time Monk Radio, we are joined by special guest Ian Wilson. Ian is a private dream researcher and dream explorer who has been recognized by members of the International Association for the Study of Dreams as a pioneer in the exploration of precognitive dream phenomena. In 1998, Ian published a free book entitled A Course on Consciousness, which delves into lucid dreaming and other consciousness during sleep techniques in a structured outline course. You can learn more about Ian and his many years of research at his website, yourdreaming.org. Hello, Ian, and welcome to Time Monk Radio.
Well, thanks for having me on, Gemini.
We are so happy to have you join us and to start talking about dreaming. I have been on your website. I've read your many articles and have delved into some of your ebooks that you have out there. And I'm curious how you became interested in dreaming.
Well, as a child, dreams were always very entertaining and fascinating, but they didn't really become that intriguing until I encountered a concept called lucid dreaming, which was introduced to me by an Omni magazine, where Dr. Stefan LaBerge wrote an article called Power Trips, Controlling Your Dreams. And he talked about this idea that people could actually be conscious and awake during the dream state and control the content of their dreams. So I was 15 at the time, and this idea of, having this freedom to explore and control and create my own dream worlds was a thrilling idea. And it became more solidified when I would shortly there have my first lucid dream. And the first lucid dream was like waking up into a completely brand new world. It was really the most breathtaking experience at that point in my life. And everything that was described in his article suddenly became real. I was like, wow, this is the real deal. You can be conscious here in this state. And it was instantly just, I'm hooked. I'm going to be a lucid dreamer for the rest of my life. And 30 years later, I haven't missed a beat. I've been enjoying lucid dreaming and exploring consciousness during sleep as something to do when it's time for bed.
Once you started learning how to do the astral dreaming or lucid dreaming, I guess, did you find it easier as a teenager, or have you been able to practice and maintain that throughout your life?
Yeah, I've maintained being conscious. I mean, there's times in my life where life can get very busy. I don't get the sleep required, so you can get periods of time where it's a lot more effort involved to become conscious. But on average, I'm averaging about maybe 2 to 3 lucid dreams a week at this age. But as a teenager, when I had a really good dreaming schedule, I could be conscious from the moment I closed my eyes through the whole dreaming process till I woke up again.
That's fascinating. Now, is this something that you practice on a regular basis, or does it just happen naturally, spontaneously?
I always maintain a practice, so I prepare myself each night before I go to bed with the intent that when I go to sleep, I'm going to participate in the dreams that are going to be happening. I mean, we all dream all the time. It's a natural process. The only missing ingredient is being conscious during that. And so that takes a little bit of attention focusing to orientate your intent to be conscious when your body's asleep. So every night.
Every night. Okay. Now, what is the difference between, I think most people experience deja vu, but as I'm reading your material, there's also deja rave. Can you discuss the differences between the two?
Certainly. Well, deja vu It's called already seen, and it's that feeling of familiarity you get. And this can come when you say go to a completely new environment or new setting that you know you've never been there before. But for some reason, it's familiar. The people in the setting and the events that are taking place, there seems to be this familiar knowing that, for the most part, can be unexplainable. Why do I know this? It's like I've been here before, when you know you haven't. What's interesting with Deja Rave is that the dream state can present that memory that you associate with Deja Vu, and you can link back the familiarity to something you dreamed in the past. So Deja Rave is already dreamed. And a lot of people, when they hear this explanation of Deja Vu being linked to Deja Rave, realize, hey, I've actually had that. And a lot of their Deja Vu suddenly becomes Deja Rave. So it's a term that seems to be fairly new, but when it's out there and people start to look at their own experiences, you'd be surprised how many people link their Deja Vu to past dreams.
Yeah, after I read your information about Deja Rave, I had to really give thought to that, because I think what I have is Deja Vu, and it only lasts for a few seconds, and it's almost if I could sit still and it would last longer. And I don't know that I've dreamt it before, but it certainly feels like I've done it before, and I don't really know how to tell the difference. Is there a way that you can tell that?
The only way that you would know is because you would have a certain amount of memory from a past dream in your waking memory, because you've either reviewed the dream or thought about the dream when you woke up. It's just enough to retain that. A lot of the times when we do go to sleep at night, we kind of enter what I call sleep-induced amnesia, because as you can imagine, everybody sleeps up and has almost 6 dreams a night. And of that, how many people actually remember 1 or 2 or 3 or even a minute of that experience? For the most part, I'd say humanity is very dream illiterate, not engaging that part of themselves. So sleep-induced amnesia is kind of where we're at culturally. And so Deja Vu, when you don't have the memory, it's just like amnesia. You're getting this pattern that's familiar, but you're not getting the memory as to where the origin of that familiarity is coming from. But some people who are more active in their dreams and are having more conscious memory of their dreams, they tend to have more Deja Rave because, you know, it's now something that's in their waking memories.
So, Ian, what purpose do you think that dreaming serves for humans?
Well, it's a very broad spectrum of experiences that are working through a lot of our, there's so many, from emotional issues, working out fears, fulfilling fantasies and desires. Dreams, they can service almost every aspect of your personality and even extend from that, because dreams really are an extension of yourself, into other experiences that go way beyond, the trivial, mundane things that we go about in the days. So I think dreaming is a very crucial part of the human experience because it's a very crucial part of our consciousness. It's a thought process that we have between our waking conscious self and our subconscious. So it's kind of a language that we're using to communicate and express and also create experience.
So are you of the thought that, you know how when you start a new hobby or you start a new role at work and you do the repetitive task over and over and over in your dream, that you're almost as tired at work and as when you wake up from doing that repetitive task? Do you find that, or do you have a thought on how that differs from being out and lucid dreaming and working solutions out, or being in a different consciousness?
Well, lucid dreaming is, again, it's just like being awake for sure, because the dream reality can be as sensory rich and real. It's almost like you're putting on a full sensory virtual reality suit. I mean, one of the things about dreams, when you really get into it, is like nature has evolved the perfect virtual reality simulator. And all it takes is consciousness to play. And that's kind of what I'm saying, that I play on it. When you really engage dreams with consciousness, you're opening yourself up to an experience that can be as real and vivid and sensory engaging as your waking life. So when you're there, I mean, the sky's the limit. The limits are your imagination. And you can go way beyond working out mundane little problems to having adventures, having really fulfilling experiences. It's a very magical place to be. I love it. I've never gotten bored in 30 years.
Okay, I agree. I love, especially when I remember my dreams, and I oftentimes feel like it's an experience versus just a mundane dream of repetitive tasks or working out the day's issues. It feels like I've actually been somewhere. Do you think, lucid dreaming, even though I may not be conscious of it at the time?
Well, again, there's three different areas of dreaming that I've kind of worked out, and one of it's memory. So memory has an impact on how we retain dream information. The other thing is awareness in dreams, and for the most part, the majority of people are in a unconscious state of awareness. So they're not awake and lucid like they are in their waking life. They're kind of let go, and they're in the passenger seat of their subconscious. And then the next thing is perception, how we perceive the dream. And that's all your sensory feedback that you get from it. So in some cases, people only see black and white. Some people will see the color. Some people may not hear. They don't have any auditory. So those are three areas that you work on to bring about a much more rich experience with dreaming. And you can almost gauge in every dream that you have how much memory you had from it, how much awareness you were when you were in it, and how much perception you had based on the quality of the experience. And if you max all those three out and you're in a lucid dream, it really becomes just like being in another reality system. It can be as detailed, rich as the waking world, and even super real. You can get into very super real dreams, like, for example, false awakenings, where people wake up and they go and start getting ready for the day, and you think you're in physical reality, only to wake up and realize that was just a dream. So the dream realism is something that's very attractive once you don't have any fear and this is what you're into. And that's what I go for when I'm in that experience, is trying to maximize those three areas to get the most rich and pristine dream that I can before I wake up.
Now, do you find in your dream state, because I've had this happen with me, I can smell, I can taste, I can hear music, I'm aware of myself. Do you do all of those things as well?
Absolutely. I feel heat and cold. It depends, again, because that scale, when you're looking at perception in that regards, I've surprised myself to even feel my dream body and sense bone. Like, there was a while when I was younger, I didn't feel the solidity, but, it gets to the point of where it can simulate realism so well that everything you experience here, you can experience there, and with a lot more freedom. So very, very real experiences.
Do you dream about, or do you have other people in your dreams that you do not know in your waking reality?
Yeah, I think a lot of the times when I'm in dreams, there's several dream characters that I don't recognize from my waking life. Quite often, the people that I do recognize, either it's somebody that you've seen on TV. So if you see like a person that's been in a movie or something, oh, that's that person in my dream. So you tend to recognize what you know as people, and then all the other people that are there that you don't know, it's probably because maybe I've seen them in the waking world. My subconscious mind's recorded that information, but because I haven't directly engaged them, you don't have that relationship. So, but absolutely, lots of people that I've never met in my waking life or know in my waking life appear in my dream world.
So to take that a step further, for example, there will be people in my dream state that I clearly have affection for. They're an important part of my world, but I don't know them in my waking state.
Yeah, I mean, I've had relationships, and it does happen with dream characters that aren't people that you are going to meet in your waking life. They are completely unique to that experience. And you wake up wishing, gee, I would like to meet that person, because if they're anything like they were in that dream, they'd probably be just that amazing in waking life. But that's dreams for you.
Right. And so that leads me into another question for you. Is our dream state another potential reality?
I look at it as non-physical reality. That's the term that I've always coined on it. And in the course in consciousness, you'll see I kind of break away two different realities. We have physical reality, which is here where we are right now. And the non-physical reality is everything that happens when we sleep, anytime that we become conscious or in the dream state. from an experience perspective, the dream that you're having is very real. The experience is very real. As to how it relates to the waking world, it may not have any relationship to it at all. So defining real between dream reality and physical reality, both systems give you experiences. Both systems are part of what you are, and both of them can offer you consciousness and conscious experience. So it's you that makes that dream world its own reality. So you're the one that's really at the core of reality between those two relationships, in the waking world and the dream world.
Okay, and you have on your website, yourdreaming.org, one of the titles that you have is "The Dream Has You. You're living the dream that lasts a lifetime." What do you mean by that?
Well, that gets into a very deep relationship with the waking reality that we're a part of. And this comes from Deja Vu, precognition, and my exploration with it. When I was starting my adventures in dreamland at 15, I didn't know and I didn't have any experience yet with dreaming something and having it come true in the future. And my interest in dreaming obviously brought about a lot more memory, so I had a lot more experience to bring back to my waking self. And to my surprise, dreams started to emerge with that deja vu familiarity. So I was having deja vu without a link to a dream, and then all of a sudden I'd have a deja vu but go, oh, wait a second, this is like that dream that I had. And so at that age, it was kind of the introduction to this greater potential with the dream experience, that there's something more to dreams than just dreams that relate to our waking world through precognition specifically. And over the course of 11 years, I really honed in on trying to understand that relationship between specifically precognitive dreams and waking reality. So what is dreamt there happens here sometime down the road. And by 17, I had gone through a tremendous amount of precognitive dreams, and I struggled with it in the beginning. I was very afraid of it. I didn't understand it. I'd talk to people about it, and they had no idea what I was talking about. So I was very alone in that experience. And of course, when people did hear about this idea, they didn't really take to it with anything more than, well, this person's starting to talk crazy. It wasn't well received by anybody. So it was a very difficult start to a journey of trying to understand this relationship, understand this experience. And it wasn't until I started having lucid precognitive dreams that it became more apparent that this covert relationship between dreaming and reality existed. And now, past 11 years into 30 years of dream exploration, for me, the waking world and the dream world are two interconnected systems. So, at a very deep level, and when you get into the precognitive aspect of it, we may all be existing in a unified field of consciousness that's using dreams to program the experience of reality. So it's very deep stuff. It's basically implying that we're dreaming right now and don't realize it.
Interesting. So when you have these precognitive dreams, or in your lucid dreaming, do you attempt to change the outcome?
For a period of time when I first started having a lucid precognitive dream, I didn't take action on them. And you kind of go with the flow. So you're in an event. A dream is kind of like an event. And just as you would respond to the circumstances that are present in that, you would go about and respond the normal way you'd respond to anything in your waking life. So in the first wave of lucid precognitive dreams, I just kind of observed it. And then when they would happen later, aside from being completely shocked and mind blown by that experience, it took some courage to, say, well, what else could you do with this opportunity when it presented itself? So I got into trying to change it, and I started a sort of a series of exploration where in every dream that I would have, I would try to change it, but to change it knowing, this is a lot of layers of dreaming. The dream reality is just a massive information system, and it's hard to navigate because our focus state takes us into all these different types of dreams that may not relate at all to precognition. So this elusive precognitive layer, and that's kind of what I termed it back in the day, was somewhere, but hard to navigate to. So I would leave geometrical footprints in the dreams by kind of changing the topology. So just using dream control, I'd put a triangle or a circle or a square on the surface of something in the dream. And if it was precognitive, the question was, well, what if that change comes true? You know, like if it's a precognitive dream, would it happen? And back in 1998, around May, it started to happen. I actually was able to tag a precognitive dream, put a little footprint on it in the form of a triangle, and that happened later on in waking reality.
That's fascinating. Okay, so when you say that you put a tag in your dream, is that like an energy imprint?
Well, think about trying to map out anything. You kind of like being in a maze. So imagine you're in this complex hyperdimensional maze, which is our reality system, and you're trying to get to understand all these very specific layers that are present in the dream state, knowing that there's one specific layer that deals with waking reality, that very elusive part. So like any maze, you drop a breadcrumb here, or put a little mark so you know you've been there before. And that was my idea with trying to map out this very complex system that I was now engaging. So to leave a mark, it was just imagine just focusing on the surface of something and just changing it by putting like a shape on it, like a triangle, something very simple, doing it very easy.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. That's really interesting. And so if you have an event coming up, say, are you able to go into a dream state and change the outcome of an event that I guess really hasn't happened yet, or perhaps it has, I don't know. But say you have a big meeting coming up and you want to influence that. Do you go into a dream state to do that to your advantage?
No, I haven't used it in any way that I would consider to be too advantageous. I've used it more as a learning experience because I had questions that I wanted answers to. And it has prevented me from having a tragic, potentially fatal car accident with my daughter. I did have a precognitive dream where I was driving on snow-covered roads. I was the first car on them because the roads clearly hadn't been groomed and there was no other tracks in the road, so it was pristine. Turned down a hill, and in the dream, I couldn't stop because when I went to apply the brakes, at the end of the hill was a T-section, so there was a stop sign and then a road that crossed in front of me, and then after the road there was an embankment, right? And so in the dream, the car slid, and I freaked out because I knew I'd lost control. And slid right into oncoming traffic, and there was this white pickup truck, and it just barreled into the driver's side of my car, right? And then I woke up. So now this happened about, I'd say almost 4 years ago when the dream actually came true. But in preparation for it, because it had all the signatures of potentially being precognitive, I recognized the setting. I recognized, I had my daughter in the car, and I knew that it was very close to waking reality, that it might be precognitive. I should probably do something about it because at that time, our roads around here aren't that icy where you need to have studded winter tires. I kind of got by with 2 winters, 2 all seasons. And for the first time in my entire life of driving, I went and bought studded winter tires, all brand new for my car at the start of that year. And, I told my mom about the dream. I told my father about the dream. So they all knew that, I was nervous by it. So it kind of spooked me out of it. And then I was house sitting for a person and had my daughter with me. And it was the first fall of snow, and now I have my studded winter tires on. And of course, I've had, we all have bad experiences in the first fall of snow. I mean, driving on the highway, you can get a semi-truck fishtailing. So I thought taking the back roads was the safest bet. And so for that moment, that's what got me set into that lead up to that pattern, because, why was I on these unpaved roads to begin with? Well, I had my daughter, and I wanted to make sure she was safe, not get caught up in highway traffic where it could be really slippery. So I took the back roads, and of course the back roads led to that hill. And so here I am now getting to that point where the dream is now catching up. And the same moment where I applied the brakes in the dream took place. And the only difference was the car still slid. I could feel the black ice, but you could hear the studs grinding into the ice. And I managed to stop about 1 foot past the stop sign. So I didn't fully stop. It was still very slippery. But the white pickup truck went in the front of my car. and I
Wow.
didn't have the accident. So it allowed me to change circumstances. So the event was still taking place. So that event was going to happen somehow. It was already in that whole order of events that I was involved in. But instead of being hit by the truck and potentially being killed, here I am today to talk about that experience. And that's why I wrote the theory of precognitive dream, actually, was because of that specific dream. I was like, I really want to advocate for this. I don't want to take this to my grave and not at least talk about it, because I know this is something that does affect a lot of other people. And, you don't have to be completely silent about these kind of extraordinary experiences out of fear of being ridiculed. I mean, I went through all that as a teenager and I handled it just fine. And I have absolutely no problem with it as an adult now, having spent 30 years of, trying to understand that experience. It's played a huge role in my life, more than most people realize.
Yeah, that's extraordinary. So when you had the precognitive dream, it obviously jolted you enough to, because it was a life and death type of dream. Was this a place and time where then you went in and you put a signature to change the outcome?
No, because in the dream I wasn't lucid, and so it was an unconscious style dream. So I was just kind
Okay.
of going with the flow. Not every precognitive dream I have is lucid. That's a very smaller percentage of them, but it was a precognitive dream, and just from past experience, like normally I probably would have ignored something like that had I not had, years of experience with it to do something as radical as, buying a set of winter tires for my car.
Right.
But so it was also a bit of a gamble. That dream may not have had anything to do with my waking life. It could have been completely just a normal dream, but it certainly did, and I certainly made the right choice. I think in not doing so or not having that warning, I really wonder where my life would be right now. I don't think, at least if anything, critically injured in a hospital, if not dead. So.
Wow. Okay.
But when we get back to the mapping stuff with the lucid. It's interesting because when you wake up in a dream, and this is known for almost everything, you don't know how you got there. Inception did a really great job of kind of saying like how did you get to that moment in time in your dream? Like, there's that lack of continuity of a past. You're suddenly in a current event, and as to what that current event is and what the content of that event is, you just appear there. You're just like, boom, I'm in this event. So I just took advantage of an opportunity to make a change in a current event that was present in a dream state. So I didn't navigate to a timeline. I didn't choose a timeline. I just had an opportunity to do something while it was present. And that's when I started, trying to intercept a precognitive dream to make change.
And, one of the questions I had for you is the benefit in influencing dream states or outcomes of dreams. And clearly that precognitive, there is benefit to doing that.
Absolutely. If it can save your life, I think so. If it could stop you from getting on an airplane that might crash because you dreamt about it, to find out later it has. And that's common. You'd find, when you start looking at, I guess we call it the anecdotal evidence of people who have had premonitions or warnings where they haven't gotten on a train or a plane or on a car to find out later that, there was an accident there. Some people have reported back, I didn't want to do that because I didn't feel right. And I think there was a study, I'll have to look it up, but they find that in circumstances where there is a mass event, where there's an accident, there's more often less people not showing up for their seating than when there is. When you get into really the advanced stages of dreaming, when you go past just having a precognitive dream that's not lucid, or you go past just having an unconscious dream and becoming lucid, the more you grow with this system that's there, there's an opportunity. I think this resides in all of us, because I'm not the only person on the planet to have had a precognitive dream. Lots of people do. J.W. Doon is a really great example of somebody, and he wrote a book called An Experiment with Time, and he chronologed as best as he could dreams and then matched those dreams up to events that would happen later in the future. And even Aristotle debated with people in his time, this is 350 BC, about prophesying by dreams. And he skeptically debated, like, why does the common man have dreams come true? Because in his opinion, this was something that was like gift from God. So the average man shouldn't. This should only be exclusive to like the most holy of holy people at his time. So the history of precognition didn't start when I first had mine. That was just lit me up to try and understand it more. Once it became real and I knew it wasn't some sort of, figment of my warped imagination or some delusion of grandeur, that there was a very real event happening here that related between past dreams and future reality. I just did my best to answer my own questions through the experience itself. I felt, why should I wait for somebody else to tell me if it's real or not? I'm already seeing that it is, so why not explore it? And I just jumped in. Just said, let's just see how far I can push it.
Right. When you're out and about in your daily life or work or out with friends or however you're spending your time, do you engage people in conversations about dreams? Are they willing to share, and what are you finding out there in the general population?
Well, here's here's an interesting example. I helped this lady who had her car break down, and she said, I don't want to sound really weird, but I actually had a dream with you in it. This was our first time meeting each other, right? And I said, well, boy, you should talk to the right person about that. It's rare, but it pops up. I mean, I find today a lot more people have experience with Deja Vu than Deja Vu. So that has certainly been a big change than 30 years ago. It would be almost nobody. I would bring the conversation up and just ask, have you ever dreamt something that happened later? And nope. Oh, okay. And yet lots of people, when I was in high school, I kind of probably got tagged as, but I was investigating. I had to understand what was happening to me. So I had to figure, well, if it's happening to me, it must be happening to somebody else. And then all of a sudden, boom, yeah, I have. You meet that person that would have that experience, but they would know nothing about it. They didn't really want to talk about it. So it was like, okay, well, you don't really know too much information on it. And, that's when I kind of realized, and at that time too, the internet wasn't as lively as it is today with information. So I didn't have any resources that was explaining precognition to me. Eventually I stumbled on some books, started reading, I think it was the Seth material, Jane Roberts stuff, and Seth talked about precognition, and I was excited about that because finally somebody's talking about it. But the journey for me was one of complete and absolute darkness. Like I felt like I was just on an island. It was that was the fear that it brought with it. Like the something's happening to you that nobody understands. But, a lot of people just think you're crazy, like you get that kind of response. But now it's like, yeah, 1 in 3 people, almost 1 in 2 people, almost, a lot more people are having that experience. So it's like it's starting to surface a bit more in our waking collective consciousness than being something in our collective consciousness. And I think I sent you a Reddit post where somebody had cited a CNN article where they talked about Deja Vu, right? And everybody, you read the comments, and the comments go down to the thousands talking about, oh my God, I've had this experience. Yeah, it's there. I mean, people are having it. So let's talk about it. Let's understand it. Let's not leave it in this taboo or, there's been so much research throughout the years from the SBR and the Rhine. I mean, when you get into the study of precognition, it goes all the way back to the 1800s. Emilio Vorjak was the guy who coined the term Deja Vu. When you read his works and you read his letters, he was a parapsychologist back in the 1800s, and that coined that term. But you get into his letters and he's talking about dreams coming true. It was Deja Vu. So if the term stuck back in the 1800s as Deja Vu and people knew already dreamed linked to that, we'd probably have a lot more people coming forward with their experiences. And so if you are that kind of person and have that experience, don't freak out about it. It's been part of our human history for since probably the dawn of early man. It's a part of what we are. It's just there.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. And I did enjoy that Reddit link and the comments were astonishing. Just everything that everyone was sharing. Of course, they're in an anonymous space and they feel comfortable sharing.
Right.
And, when you're out in the public with people that you maybe know or acquaintances, I don't know that it's discussed as much. And, something that's happened to me, and I'll just put it out there for you, see if you've experienced this, is when I have people that are close to me that are in the process of crossing over, transitioning to death, or have died, they often will come to me in a dream state. And that's how I will know that they've actually passed. Do you experience that, or is our dream state a thinning of our veil to where we have more, what's the word I want to use, like more access to a spiritual place?
Well, as you know, you're not alone in that type of experience. It's very common when people transition that family members can have dreams about them before they go. I know my mom, before her father passed away, had an experience where about 2 days before it happened, she was visited by his parents, and they told her that they have come to take their son away back home, right? And of course, she didn't make any sense of it, but she recognized them as being, her grandparents, his parents. And then he unfortunately fell, hit his head, and died from subdermal hemorrhaging. And so, that again is something that does surface up. When we really start getting deep into this relationship with reality, this relationship with yourself, there's this interconnectedness that we all have. Like, we're all part of each other. We're all part of a whole. We're this unified field of self. This consciousness that's experiencing reality. But, when somebody moves into that state and it's their time to go and they're moving on, they're definitely moving on. There's no, consciousness. There's that continuity of self that has been long debated. Do we survive death? Is there something more? Well, we came from that state to be here. We're just going to go back to that state when we're done here. But coming to understand that and know that is one of the bigger challenges. But it's definitely there, and it was a challenge worth trying to figure out.
Yeah, I always love those types of experiences because they don't feel like a typical dream to me where it's just working out the day or whatever issues are going on. But when it actually feels like a visit, and they will continue to visit even long after they're gone. Sometimes it takes a while for them to show up, but they make me aware of their spiritual presence or whatever you want to term it. I don't really have a term for it. And animals will do the same thing.
Absolutely. A good example of my life, I know it's on my website, where my grandma had passed away, and then about 2 years later, on the anniversary of her passing, I ended up having a dream with her, and it was very much like that, being contacted by her. And she said great things like, "I see a lot more of you now than you see of me," and so it's challenging, because the other thing that I've come to realize, Gemini, is that we suffer from a lack of knowledge, and always have. Our immersion into becoming a human is a hugely impactful thing, because we're stripped of knowing, we're stripped of knowledge for the start of our journey, and we have to gain all this knowledge and experience to work on our self-identity of what we are and our relationship with the world around us. But when you really start seeing the bigger picture of what we are as this self, what is this self? What is this dreamer? What is this consciousness that's part of this body? It goes much, much deeper than this current moment in time, 100 years from the past. I mean, we're talking about something that doesn't abide by time the same way we do while we're here, where time doesn't exist, space doesn't exist, and we're looking at something that's absolute, infinite, and eternal. You start getting into that real deep root of what we're connected to and what we're a part of. When you start going into the more metaphysical relationships with reality, and being conscious during sleep, the lucid dreams are fun, but absolutely you can start accessing information and come out of that immersion and start overcoming the amnesia, the forgetfulness, and you can now have knowing, which is far more valuable than belief. So I think it's better to know, if you can, than just to hope or think or wish. You can absolutely know.
Yes, absolutely. Now, Ian, do you find that one could obtain the same level of precognition in a meditative state versus being in a dream state?
It's very possible because meditation can lead to information access. I mean, dreams are just accessing information, and meditation is the same thing. I don't, and I've never really practiced meditation like a traditional meditation where you give time to yourself, sit maybe in a lotus position and just go inward. I've always done, I guess, a different type of meditation, which is just the act of staying conscious when my body's falling asleep. But that is very much a meditative state. So the answer to that is yes. Have I experienced it that way myself? No. But I've bumped into people that they access, with their intuition, they can have flashes while they're awake, and then those flashes can happen. So I think it's just all information, and it's how we get to that information, how we access that information, which is, and I'm sure it has many different vehicles to get there when a person's actually now engaging that in their life.
Do you find that having certain foods in your diet or consuming alcohol or even perhaps marijuana that would, or any other type of drug or prescription or legal out, whatever, would that change how you're able to dream or precognition, lucid dreaming, that sort of thing?
Absolutely. The thing is, again, we get back to memory. So if you're, say, drinking alcohol, which affects your memory, it'll affect your memory with dreams. And I noticed that. I mean, I don't drink. I don't think I've been drunk now in about, really drunk in about 8 years. I drink maybe 1 or 2 beer if I do, and that's maybe once every 2 or 3 months. So my intake of alcohol is on a really big low. I'm not a big fan of it. And exactly for that reason, I find that if I drink too much, it just ruins dreaming completely. I struggle way worse than I should. And since the dreams are way more fun than the alcohol, it's like, well, I'm trading something really great for something really boring and unnecessary. So, as for food, I mean, I have a terrible diet. I'm not a vegetarian. I eat Burger King, and I like steak. That doesn't seem to really have a big impact. So I can't say that the food we eat is entirely related. But I do think it affects memory. I think you're safe to say if whatever substance you're playing with affects your ability to remember, expect that to have an impact on your dream because you're impacting that one very important part of the memory. So, I think I haven't really experimented with a lot of drugs. I mean, back in high school, yes, a little bit. I tried some entheogens like LSD and magic mushrooms, and they didn't really have much of an effect. I mean, the mushrooms did. But I didn't like the effect, and my dreams were already far superior to any drug that I had. So drugs were never really a big attraction for me.
Sure.
So I don't have a lot of experience on, the benefits of, completely. I just know that you can get way better experiences when you're lucid dreaming. I mean, like people take drugs to have that. Is how my attitude is. Like, you want to get high so you can be conscious in a dream. That's what you're looking for.
Right.
You can have it without the drugs. Don't need to do them. Not necessary.
Yeah, and I agree with you on that because I was a big fan of wine, have a glass of wine with dinner, or, out with friends having cocktails. And I find that it's not worth it anymore because it changes my dream state, my energetic abilities, and I would rather be on the spiritual dreaming side of things than enjoying a glass of wine. So I can totally relate to that.
And here's the kicker. You can go to the dream state and you can have the most fabulous glass of wine. You can have the most delicious beer. I don't know if you've had I always brag about it with people and they probably think either A, I'm telling the truth and the dream world actually can give you better experiences than your waking life. I call it better than life dreaming, right? So you can get into these BTL dreams and yeah, the food's amazing. Like chocolate. I'm still trying to find chocolate that I've eaten in my dream state because it was just so delicious and so amazing to find the chocolate that we have here is good. Don't get me wrong. And it's a great starting point, but, there's been foods I've eaten in the dream state that have just been fabulous that I just can't find here. It just doesn't exist. And guilt-free, you just wake up from it. Same thing with sex. I mean, sex here has consequences. Sex there, none.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that, because and clearly, and when people have discussed their dreams with me, sometimes it takes a really interesting turn, like, having sex with complete strangers, or they don't remember who that person is and they feel guilty because it was so real. And it makes me wonder, is that part of that dream reality?
Well, the thing is, again, when, dreams are an amazing example of how we can process information and create at runtime a reality as detailed and complex as how we perceive the waking world. And, I don't know why people really look at dreams with such a negative light. I mean, it's a real big taboo, surprisingly. So many people, oh, well, it's just a dream. Or I'm like, but you'll pay $10 to go watch a movie, and you'll pay $1,500 to slap on a VR headset, but you won't give a minute of your time to nature's finest virtual reality simulator. You don't want to play in the holodeck of the mind. Like, I mean, do you even know what you're missing? So the attitude with dreaming and people here, it's like, I call it, we're in a very dreamy literate society. Like, our culture has missed the boat on this opportunity. Like, all this investment in technology into VR, you're already born with it. You're born with nature's finest virtual reality simulator. You were given that at birth, man, and you've chosen not to use it your whole life. Well, don't cry to me when you wake up and realize that, man, those hours wasted at sleep where you could have gone on these grand adventures and participated in it, and whatever attitude that prevented you, well, I'm sorry, you're not going to get that time back. You're not going to get those opportunities. You only get them when you sleep and if you take advantage of being conscious. I mean, dreams aren't an unconscious experience. They are really for the consciousness to spark up and be a part of. I mean, unconscious dreaming is so like, yeah, that's okay, but conscious dreaming is a whole other level of experience. So, I really want to say, be conscious when you go to sleep at night. Make that your nightly goal.
Yeah, that's one of my favorite pastimes is to snuggle in with some chamomile tea, drift off, and attempt to have a conscious dream. I'm not always successful, usually not, and I'm always delighted when I am. But with someone like you that has 2 to 3 a week, that's fascinating to me.
Well, it's because I love it. I mean, I have nothing better to do when my body hits the pillow. None of us do.
Right.
You're going to waste 8 hours of existence that you're never going to get back. Like, think about it. Your whole life is the accumulation of experience, right? And every experience, if you're only focusing on the physical, that's it. That's all you're going to add to your experience pool. You're not getting anything else from it. But when you can go to sleep and be conscious and have experiences as real as your waking life and better, well, you just added 1 hour, 2 hour of time that you've lost to unconsciousness back as an experience. So just for an experience perspective, it's like, it's better than movies. It's better than video games. It's better than our current VR technology. When you master the art of dreaming, it's pure experience, and you're only adding to your overall experiences. So, another way of looking at it is those 8 hours lost to sleep at night. When you look at your life, I mean, sure, you might live to 90, but you're actually going to be about 60 years old of experience. You're not going to be 90 years of constant experience, but you add these hours or 2 hours here, 4 hours there. Sometimes dream time can stretch. You can have 2 weeks of dreams. I've talked to people who said they've lived in a dream for an entire lifetime before they woke up.
Yeah, I wanted to touch on that, Ian. That was some information on your website that I wanted to I'm glad you brought that up. Tell me a little bit more about that, because I know in one of your articles you said that you dreamt a century in a lifetime.
Well, that wasn't me. I'll make it clear that I've done about 2 weeks. So
2 weeks, okay, still.
I'm working on it. It's not easy to do because, for me, if I'm in a long period of time in any dream, I start to realize I'm dreaming. So if it gets really engaging, eventually I wake up. And sometimes that can have a benefit because I'm there, and it can last a long time. But then the other thing is I get concerned. Well, the time's really stretching. Like, I've been in this dream for, oh my God, like hours upon hours, days now upon days. Is something wrong? Should I wake up? You bring the ego and the fear in, and then suddenly you go, okay, I got to wake up. So you just do what you do to wake up, and you cut it short. So the best stretch that I think I've had is maybe at a max 2 weeks before I freak out and wake myself up. But it's amazing to be able to even have a dream that lasts 6 hours in a half an hour of sleep. Like, there's definitely this opportunity to, cultivate time. And that's what we are, is time. Our experiences are bound to it. So, adding 6 hours of conscious experience in a 30-minute sleep, wonderful. I call them mini vacations. I love those little mini vacations.
Now, is this something you can do at will?
Not as much as I would like to. It's just something that happens. Like, it's hard to explain because, yes, there are dreams that I completely control that are 100% my will. I'll go and construct, like, one of the things that I like to do are genre-specific lucid dreaming, and something that, where you take a video game or you take a movie or you take something that you really are enjoying in life and you recreate it in the dream state. When I was a kid, it was always like Star Wars. I mean, I've been Luke Skywalker and Darth Vader. So, you can engage these really wonderful fantasy genres in the dream state. Like, I played Dungeons and Dragons, and man, for me, it wasn't the pen and paper stuff that had me going. It was the dreams that came with it. Seeing orcs in the dream state and battling them like you would as your character. Yeah, so that was my turn on it. It was very entertaining. It brought to life these wonderfully rich, imaginative worlds in a way that was as real as my waking life. I mean, it's a no-brainer. Fantastic. Awesome. Thank you. Great for
right.
But for people, like, I've been contacted because, I've had my email out there now for since 1998, and there hasn't been a lot of interest, surprisingly, but I'm not worried about it, whatever. But there are people that have contacted me, and it's interesting because they'll say, like, yeah, I was trapped in a dream and it lasted I had a wife, I had children, I grew old, and when I finally died in the dream, I woke up again, and then they all say the same thing. It took them weeks to reorientate back to waking life. Not just one person, but several people over the years have confided in me. And of course, I've talked about this experience with other people, and I encountered somebody who had a similar experience, but not through dreaming, but through actually using, a really potent entheogen. And they said, I was trapped in a hallucinatory state that was like being in a dream that lasted an entire lifetime. And even he described it took weeks for him to get reorientated back into their waking life. So I don't personally have experience with that, but I find just that one very same similar kind of explanation, like, yeah, it took me quite a while to reorientate. That was a big part of it because I didn't really discuss that part with any of them, and they all relayed back that weird oddity of 2 to 3 weeks of getting reorientated back into their normal waking life and letting, accepting that wonderful dream life, whatever, is now gone. And not having experienced it, I mean, I'm open-minded to it. I'm still waiting for maybe that's this dream right now that's lasting a lifetime, so I'm probably already there. But sleep dream that'll last a lifetime while I'm working on it.
Right. Do you find that you can have shared dreaming?
That was another very pleasant discovery through lucid dreaming. Of course, you're going to bump into friends and people in that state, and because when you're there, it's just like being in another reality. So, you talk to them, and I'm excited because I'm dreaming, and I'm like, yeah, I know this is a dream, and blah blah blah. Well, to my surprise, it's very rare. I wish it was a lot more prevalent, but especially when I was younger and a teenager and I had a larger social circle, and my friends were very easily accessible because you met them every single day at school. I had some amazing confirmations of shared dreams, absolutely, where they would pick up parts of the conversation that were left off in the dream state. I've been around people where I wasn't involved as the person in their dreams, where one person kicks up a counter and says, I had a dream with you in it, and they start talking. The next thing they know, they're talking about the exact same environment, the exact same setting. And the beautiful thing about dreams is they're so exaggerated. You get all this wonderful symbolism. And for them to have the exact same symbolism, really kind of seals the deal. In one case, it was 3 people all sat at a table, and all 3 of them had the same dream, the same ornate structures on the table that describe the same exact thing. And I was standing there listening, just in like, wow, this is great to just then as an outsider already having had mine. And then I talked about my experiences with them and said, yeah, I've had that before. So it can be not just between one person, it can be with multiple people. So why isn't there more of it? Well, people don't like to dream. They don't like to remember. So the opportunity to have that confirmation is lost to amnesia.
Have you had an opportunity, or do you have the ability to plan to dream with someone and meet up like at a known place?
No, I've never met anybody that was passionate like I was to even begin that opportunity, and a lot of interest. I mean, there was one person back in high school. We had most of my shared dreams was with that person. Then we kind of drifted apart. Years went by, and that person now, they don't even believe that those memories, we talk about a shared dream. It's like, oh, just because I told you about it. But yeah, so, very hard to find somebody. I mean, I haven't found anybody that wants to go there as, and I think to even do it, it's like you need to have somebody like that good best friend or that good personal person, like a family member, somebody that knows. And, I just haven't found that kind of a person. And now at 45, I stopped looking for that, soulmate kind of idea to go off into dream space and explore. I've kind of just done the whole lone wolf thing now. Like, well, I'll wait till everybody catches up. I'm just going to venture off on my own.
Sure. Yeah, I understand. and so along the same lines, though, I presume that you also astral travel in your dreams.
Yeah, I mean, when you go into consciousness during sleep, you can absolutely have what's called the out-of-body experience. And it's very similar to a lucid dream, but quite often it's that actual sensation of rolling out of your physical body, standing by the edge of your bed and being in that other state. Again, it's very similar to lucid dreaming, because dreams, they happen at a different focus state, a different locality than, jumping out of your body. I was really big into the out-of-body experience by the age of like 16 up to about 24. I was more focused on, going through that whole process of rolling out. And I kind of couldn't maintain it when I got really busy into my career. Once I started getting into my career, my time to sleep really dropped off. So I was more or less now just relying on lucid dreaming. But by that point, I had gone so far, so deep into the experience, answered all my questions. It wasn't really a necessary tool as much. I was more now concerned about, paying my bills, putting food on the table, and dealing with the current experience that I'm having. So I kind of pulled back from, the real intensity of or even the need to roll out a body and go along that experience path. But that experience path itself was absolutely more mind-blowing than a precognitive dream. I think changing a dream is amazing. Go on a journey where you come out of the immersion of being human and find out what you really are. That's what that can lead to.
I think I had read a little bit about that in Robert Monroe's books about the astral traveling. So I was curious because I know that you've studied a lot of his material as well, and what your thoughts were on that versus just the dream state.
It all comes down to consciousness during sleep. That's the real key. The key is that you're self-aware and your body is asleep, and you're engaging now an ability to have experience. And because you can now navigate in that state, the opportunity for experiences are limited only by you. So you're the one that's now driving the vehicle this time. It's not your subconscious. And yeah, the whole astral state or the astral focus state, it can get you into localized information, but it can also show you that, it's not just an Earth thing that's going on here. We're talking about a universe that you're a part of, that there's more than just being human. There's more than just Earth. We're stuck here, but in that state, it's a multiverse. You're stepping into the multiverse. You're getting an opportunity to access information about other reality systems, other information that it's not native at all to Earth. So that's a real door opener experience. And yeah, I mean, that's for probably even another show to get into what that brought about, because yeah, that was really a very big part of my life for over 4,000 out-of-body experiences, I think.
Wow. Yeah, let's delve into that sometime. But I did want to have you explain to me, what is it, Cartesian theater?
Yeah, that's a really great concept. So the Cartesian theater is kind of, it drew about from Plato's allegory of the caves, and I think it was Rene Descartes that then actually solidified it into an idea of an homunculus that sat inside of your mind, watching the theater of the mind. The Cartesian theater is best explained as what our mind is generating as the experience of reality. It's the Charles Pierce had a really great term for it called the phaneron. It's the world as observed through the experience of our senses, right? Because one great part of being human and being consciousness is that our entire reality is an experience of a mind-generated interface. And what I mean by that is we don't actually experience the physical world like we think we do. We experience an interpretation of sensory information that the mind then processes and outputs an overlay, like a holodeck, this overlay, an interface of what it approximates that information to be. So our whole life is spent in this so-called Cartesian theater, where all we experience is the thoughts of the mind about reality based on sensory information. So all the taste, touch, color, that's all rendered by information processing in the mind. So the mind's like this amazing computer that can take in information, process information, and output an experience of reality. And so our whole physical life is an immersive focus point into, that information. But our dreams use the same kind of Cartesian theater, the same kind of concept happens with dreaming. So all of it becomes this relationship with mind-generated experience from our entire life. I mean, your whole experience of reality is an approximation and a language of the mind. It's a rendering of all those little neurons firing off to output this interface of reality. So the Cartesian theater is the interface of reality. It's the experience of reality. And
so collectively, we share this Cartesian theater?
No, it's very unique to, it's a part of your consciousness structure. It's like a computer screen. Like, I mean, you have a computer and your computer needs to output information. At a low level, it's all binary, right? So you got zeros and ones, and that's of no use to you. So your computer needs to take information and render that information into an interface like a web browser, so you can click on a link and look at a picture, right? Well, it's the same thing with the mind. The mind takes in sensory information and has to create an interface for you to now navigate into three-dimensional space. So your perception of reality, which is the experience of reality, is the Cartesian theater. That's that browser, that's that interface. So that's all those ones and zeros are data that you're getting from the objective world, now turned into a view and an interface so that you can interact with the world around you. So I hope that makes sense.
It does. Thank you. And then let's talk about hypnagogic state.
Oh, that's a fun one. Hypnagogia, I'm very passionate about it. I try to convey it in my animations. I know in the Course of Consciousness, I wrote about hypnagogic experience as the entry into the dream state. So if you study being conscious during sleep, there's a process where obviously you close your eyes, you're going to be looking at the blank screen in your Cartesian theater. I like to call it the holodeck of the mind. And your perceptions will start to change towards the dream state. Obviously, you're going to go dreaming, and it's a very sensory related experience. So your sense of sight, your sense of touch, your sense of hearing has to now change focus states. So you're no longer going to focus on the waking world. You're now going to focus on the information coming from the dream world. But we mimic our senses. So hypnagogia is when visual information starts to appear on that blank canvas with your eyes closed, and also auditory. So you might hear faint, if you were listening to music all day, you might hear that music faintly, playing in the background of your mind. As it progresses, it becomes more vivid. So the sounds will become more audible. The patterns that emerge visually become more vibrant, and to the point where it's just like as colorful and detailed as anything you'll see in your waking life. But it comes in patterns. So sometimes the visual information can be like a Mandelbrot set of fractal. So you can see, at least in my case, and I've talked with a lot of lucid dreamers that see it, so I know it's not just me. I think even when you look at like Native American art and the Aztecs, when they draw geometrical shapes and stuff like that, I think, they're kind of observing this pattern, this hypnagogic mesh, we call it. So it's a fractal. It's this lattice of triangles morphing and shifting and clouds, fractal clouds. And that's a very good indicator that the dream is starting to emerge when you start seeing fractal geometry or any of that. And you get it also in meditation. So if you meditate, very common to start seeing hypnagogia. And from what I've read, I mean, obviously drug use can bring it about as well. But it's an interesting segue into dreaming because it's all this abstraction. I mean, from the strange sounds that you'll hear, even your thoughts can become hypnagogic. So you start thinking strange things while you're entering into that state. Your conscious personality actually starts to shift and change if you don't navigate well. So you can have these very abstract thoughts. Let's just call it that way. But it's all hypnagogia. It's just the transition between your senses moving from sensing the objective world to your senses now sensing the dream world. It's just information that you're now taking in to render on that wonderful little Cartesian theater.
Is that the state where, okay, so 1 minute I'm reading a book, I'm lying in bed reading a book before I go to sleep at night. Next thing I'm dozing off and I'm stepping off of a curb in a, busy, it always seems to be New York City, a busy street. Obviously I'm not there. Is that also the hypnagogic state?
I'd say it's a bit more advanced at that point. So what's happened is that you pass through the hypnagogic state really quickly. The hypnagogic state is it can be it depends on your pacing. It can be a very slow, gradual build up to the lucid dream, or it can be very quick, like it can happen very suddenly, like depending on how fast your body drops into sleep, right? So, but during that time, you can have sleep paralysis. So your body can, suddenly feel like it just went rigid and you can't now interact with it. So you're like, oh my God, I can't move my hands. Or, when your body enters sleep and you're conscious during that state, sleep paralysis is, there. It's going to happen, right? You're actually now in a mind awake, body asleep state. So hypnagogia is kind of just that segue between, the actual dream, which would be you standing at the curb. I would say you've probably gone past the hypnagogia already, because now that would already be a dream. If it's that detailed and rich, you're already dreaming. You're past that little threshold that sometimes you have to go through if you're going to go through it consciously. And I think for most part, people, when they go to sleep, they'll just bypass that right into sleep, so they don't even notice it. I mean, how many people really pay attention to these shifts towards dreaming? The average person's not even interested. So most people won't have experiences with hypnagogia. And right, we develop a lot of really bad habits when it comes to dreaming. And one of the best bad habits is that quick drop off to sleep. Just that shutdown in your mind. Okay, I'm going to sleep, done. So we have a lot of bad habits that stop us from dreaming. It's so funny that, our whole society is not engaging this wonderful part of themselves. But and you'll find when you really want to learn to lucid dream, you're actually just undoing these bad habits. So when you transition from waking to dreaming, the change that happens between that state when your eyes are closed is the hypnagogic shift. And when you start doing what's called waking induced lucid dreaming, or the wild techniques, a great example of where you'll encounter hypnagogia. And all it is just an inversion of your senses. Your senses are just now inverting to now, this wonderfully creative, supercharged virtual reality system that you've had your whole life. And it's fun for me because I like the very advanced, I like fractals. I think fractals are beautiful, and seeing your mind generate a fractal, I think, well, how much information power is there? This is a lot of processing power to produce this fractal. This is great. So it can be just a really wild, almost psychedelic journey into the dream state. It comes in so many different forms and packages when you pass through it. It's not always consistently the same thing. But when you start to experience it, you know that you're getting close to dreaming. And that's why it's an interesting cue that the dream's coming. When any kind of hypnagogic feedback starts, it's a good indicator that what comes next is naturally going to be the dream state.
So if you miss the hypnagogic state, and it seems like I'm doing that and I'm dropping straight off into a dream, can you still become conscious within the dream if you skip the hypnagogic?
Absolutely. So there's two techniques. I mean, there's two roads to become conscious during sleep. The hard road, which would be waking induced lucid dreaming, or otherwise known as wild. But then there's also mnemonic induced lucid dreaming, which is sort of like the beginner level, because you don't have to go through the whole hypnagogic journey into the dream state. But that's the one that you need the reality check stuff. That's when people go, oh, you look at your hands and you realize you're dreaming. So a reality check is a very commonly associated part of mild. And I like how it has wild and mild. It's great because, one is very wild to get to the dream. The other one is actually very mild. So it's a very passive way of entering the dream state. But generally, when you're in a dream and you're in that already unconscious state, so you've kind of not brought along your logical, analytical, cognitive mind. You've kind of now are just the subconscious mind being very wildly creative. The act of questioning, the act of thinking is what brings about lucidity, because you need to have that logical. I mean, lucid dreaming obviously is a balance between left and right brain function. You're getting, your left brain involved in the dream state so that you have your ability to reason, be self-aware, and navigate with intent, make those choices, know, and have the knowing that you're dreaming. So reality checks become a big part of that. And that's when you identify with the strange symbolisms in dreams, like, hey, this isn't normal. This isn't like a part of my waking life. The only way this could ever even possibly be happening is, well, because it's a dream. That's the giveaway. And dreams will always tease you and toy you with little opportunities to know that, hey, it's just a dream, to egg on your logical mind. But, how many people take the bait?
Right.
I do. Every time, constantly. I do.
Now, do you have certain symbolisms that you use that say, oh, it's time for me to be conscious within this dream? Are there certain things that you instruct people to do?
Yeah, there's no doubt that lucid dreaming is a learned technique. It's a skill. It's something you can acquire at any age. And there are some really good tried and true methods for getting there. Obviously, the most important one is that you actually want to have the experience. It's not something that you have to have this experience forced on you by some, if you don't do it, something bad's going to happen or whatever. It's really a conscious choice. It's a lifestyle choice. It's like, I want to experience this. This is something that I want to be a part of, right? And to get there, there's a lot of different techniques, but I find the best techniques are for the beginner, using something like mild as the starting point, using reality checks to get there, but also working with waking induced lucid dreaming is also very good. Taking the time to try to observe how your mind changes, how your body falls asleep, and how to participate. Like, one of the things that I always stress is your body's going to fall asleep. Don't change that pattern. Learn to work with the natural, already existing sleeping patterns that you have. Don't change it. Don't feel like you have to change your sleeping patterns to have a conscious experience during sleep. The best thing you can do is learn to allow yourself to move into that state with the already existing natural patterns that you have. It's all attention focusing. There's no magic. It's you're focusing your attention in a way that allows you to take your consciousness on that journey. Everything that you do, from affirmations to any kind of ritual, it can all be very simplified to focusing intent. It's all attention focusing. So the other thing that I like to do, and it's a technique that I read about later on in life, and I gave it a try because I thought it was just a great technique. It was called all-day awareness, where you go about and you do the reality checks that you would do in dreams, but you do it in the waking world, where you'd stop and ask yourself if you're dreaming, look for cues or signs that you might be dreaming, because it establishes now a pattern. And any kind of habit or pattern is a good thing, especially when it comes to this or dreaming, because you'll find yourself suddenly in the dream state stopping, going, well, am I dreaming? It's getting that questioning, getting that logic, bringing your analytical mind to say, oh, yes, I am, and then have that assertion of confidence. Okay, I'm dreaming, I'm here now. And a lot of people get to that point and you suddenly become conscious. You're in the dream, and then what happens? You get excited and you wake up. So
I was going to say, you get all excited and
yes,
then
exactly.
you pop out of it.
That's so common for the beginner. That, and even for me, the thrill of it is so damn amazing. Like, when you can actually fly and you have like psychokinetic powers, you can be like a Jedi. All these superpowers you see on TV, you wish you could do in real life. Well, you can do it in the dream state, no problem. There you can do it. Do it. It's fun. So, but once you get there, there's a lot of getting used to it, getting familiar with it. So you got to learn to relax. You got to learn to allow it to just unfold. And because one of the big things is fear. I mean, let's face it. What gets most people not dreaming? It's fear. Fear of the unknown, fear of new experiences. Not addressing the fear can hinder anybody because it'll make you pull back, right? well, this is scary. That fight or flight naturally evolved instinct, you don't want to bring that to the dream state, because it's just going to wake you up. So there's a lot of things that you work through, like the fear, you know, improving the quality of the dream state. And all-day awareness is great for that. So when we're talking about memory, awareness, and perception, and better than life dreaming, when you want to really bite into something tasty in the dream state, while you're in your waking world, treat it like a dream and really treat yourself like a recording machine. Like, you know that your subconscious mind is picking up all these notes and tones and flavors. So try to tell your mind, I want to have the same experience but in the dream state. I want to copy this experience and then relive it in the dream state, and do it with anything, any experience, anything you enjoy. You know, it doesn't have to be food. I mean, you know, it's just a great example of something that you can do with it. But use the waking world as your kind of metronomes of setting points of quality, like the resolution of the dream state, you know, the fidelity of it, you know, how to make it more, you know, simulated as a very real experience. And it'll just help build your perception, your memory, and your awareness when you go to the sleep state. So all-day awareness, I know if you go to my website, I have because everybody doesn't want to read these days. They either want to listen to a video or whatever. So I have a short summary called a quick start guide for lucid dreaming, and it covers all three of these techniques, from wild, mild, and all-day awareness, and a great entry point for the beginner. And then when you get comfortable with that, yeah, just, you know, keep going. Don't stop. Don't ever turn that consciousness off. It's all you got. Be conscious here and be conscious there. Get best of both worlds.
I appreciate that, Ian. On your website, yourdreaming.org, is chocked full of information, and I know we couldn't possibly cover it in our time this evening, and I do hope that you'll come back and join us. And I wanted to ask you this. My daughter knew that I was going to be having you on Time Monk Radio this evening, and she said, does he know, or do you think the technology exists to where we could ever plug into our dream state and watch it like we would a movie?
There's some progress to that, believe it or not. Using fMRI, they are doing studies where they're able to somewhat translate information that's happening on, I believe it's the visual cortex. You know, I'm not being involved in that science, I'm not the expert to talk on it, but I believe it was in Japan where they were doing these studies. And yeah, they're actually starting to be able to recreate and reconstruct, I believe from a database at this point, matching patterns that are happening in people's dream states. So, you know, I do believe that this is a technological potential in the future. We're not there yet, but the more funding, the more research, and the more interest in doing exactly that, creating a dream recording device. Today it sounds like science fiction, but so did laser beams back in the 1800s. I mean, look how far we've gotten with technology. So anybody today that would go, they could never do that. Well, look what we've accomplished already with science and technology. Amazing. So let's pour some of that funding back into studying consciousness. You know, let's reach that as a scientific goal. I mean, I'd love to have a dream recording device. I'd have a wicked YouTube channel. Are you kidding me? I'd make George Lucas and Steven Spielberg just stand there in awe going like, oh my God, you just need to close your eyes and you can create a movie that's as visually effects driven as, you know, 2 or 3 years of people, hundreds of people working on it in one night. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you can. You're born with the most amazing computer, basically.
Yeah, you know, she asked me about it, and I was like, oh, that would be wonderful to be able to review your dreams. And
oh, that'd be great.
Yeah, I love science fiction, so I would enjoy that a great deal.
And, you know, like, the thing is, I mean, there's so much opportunity, you know, for this kind of stuff, but the problem is there's no interest. Like, there's just such a taboo. Like, oh my God, I can guarantee you that, you know, the people hearing us talk about, there's going to be the group of people that have similar experiences are going to be like, yes, yeah, I've had that experience. That's great to hear it from somebody else. And then there'll be the people that don't have it. And they're like, how dare you talk about something that I've never experienced? And you're just crazy. You know? So you get the ones that'll just freak out because, you know, you're talking about something different that they have no idea about, instead of like, you know, but I mean, what can I say? I mean, our society, we're still finding our way. We're still not even, you know, embracing the real great things like empathy, compassion, and love. You know, there's so many things that people just are missing out on that are really important parts of what we are. and a better way to express yourself in this world. So, humanity hasn't yet come together. There's a lot of polarized belief systems. It's a bit of a mess right now, I think, but we're getting there. It's slow.
Yeah, it is slow, and I think we are getting there, and being able to have these types of conversations, I think, makes a huge difference.
Yeah, I don't think I'd be talking like this back in, during the Spanish Inquisition.
No, definitely not.
There's certain places still today that I probably wouldn't want to talk about this kind of stuff because it might, put me in a box. But that's not my fault. That's just people behaving badly. We have a lot of fears. I mean, there's so much fear on this planet. It's so sad. People live in such fear, and belief systems too. Like, it's like there's a point in all of this where you have to start being accountable for your life, your dreams, and answering your own damn questions. Don't believe everything that somebody else tells you. Find it out for yourself. Go there and just do it. Each of us are like literally this cosmic being. Your dreams are like a doorway to your own inner cosmology. You're your own little micro universe. Get to know that part of yourself. Really dive into that. You're missing out if you just laugh at it and say blah. There's really something extraordinary in all of us, and all it has is just this little gift called consciousness. That's what's missing. Bring that consciousness with you when you go to sleep at night, and you'll find out.
That is so true, Ian. And I so appreciate you coming on Time Monk Radio to share your research and your thoughts and your experiences. And we would love to have you back in the future. And it's been our pleasure.
Thank you very much. Until next time.
And you can check out Ian's work and research on youaredreaming.org. Thank you.
Feed your mind. Feed your mind.